Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Maz and Satcast. Today we have a very special guest. It is Coach Steve Meyer. We will go around what his career, his resume, all looks like, and he's going to do expert analysis on the Super Bowl preview for us. So thank you for joining us, Steve.
No problem. It's still going.
Forever.
Nice long applause. That's always a good thing.
It's well deserved. Well deserved.
What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm great. Seth?
I am fantastic.
All
Looking
right.
forward to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Probably more so than Roman and Rock at WrestleMania, then I guess.
Oh my God.
I was just telling him he didn't even know.
I got the text last night and I wasn't watching, so I turned it off by then, but I thought that's what they were gonna do anyway. That's why I thought the Royal Rumble was weird. Long story. Check the last episode.
No question, right?
Very long. All right, Steve. So, what is your resume? How did you start in football?
So long story short, born and raised Pittsburgh kid. About 10 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. Woodland Hills High School. Started playing in 9th, 10th grade at Woodland Hills, which is generally known as one of the top high school programs in the country. Maybe not as much as it used to be, but still a decent program. And got my start there. After my time through high school, got into kind of knew I wanted to get into coaching eventually. So went to college. Went to community college for a couple of years first, just to kind of get my life in order, figure out what I wanted to do, and then ended up getting into St. Vincent eventually, and being a part of the first program since 1962 at St. Vincent when they brought football back to campus. So did 3 years there as a player. Getting into my last year in my exit interview with my position coach, kind of told them, this is my plan. I want to go back and be a high school coach. That's all I really wanted to do initially. But he said, you know what, if you want to, you can always go back to high school. If you want to start coaching, why don't you start here in college with us? So, for 3 years I did that. Before I even graduated, I was coaching in the spring of my senior year once my eligibility was up. Got my start at St. Vincent coaching tight ends and running backs. So that's kind of where that got started in 2010. And then after 3 seasons there, kind of got to know some people with the Steelers, being that we had a relationship with the Steelers, with, St. Vincent being where, training camp has been since, for almost 60 years now. So got to know some people, knew there was going to be a player personnel scouting internship open. So I figured, why don't I like scouting, I like player development, and it's a shot to get in the NFL. So let me see how that goes. So got into that, applied, got an interview, was blessed enough to get it. So in 2013, I left St. Vincent to go to the Steelers to be a scouting intern. And then that transitioned into being a scouting assistant. It's the next step up in 2014. And then that led into me transitioning back over after the 2015 draft back into coaching as a quality control guy on the defensive side with the Steelers for that, starting in that 2015 season. Work with the linebackers and did all the quality control work, for stuff that people don't know is basically all the advanced analytics, working with the analytics guys, working with the scouts, all the film breakdown, doing all the data entry, all the breakdowns for formation, fronts, play type, et cetera, doing all that, and then working alongside of the position coach with a position. Did that for 2 seasons as a linebacker guy, and then my last year there, I transitioned into working with the secondary for this 2017 season with the Steelers. So I did that, and then after that ended, kind of knew it was going to be time that if I want to make this a career, I can't just be a quality control guy my whole life. So you kind of got to build your network and branch out a little bit. So I ended up doing that, and that's what led me into my AAF days and everything that's happened since. But that's pretty much where I got started, was from just wanting to play football. I always wanted to be a part of a historic program, and knew I probably wasn't as good enough. I was an average athlete at best, decent player, but nothing special. But I knew I had would have a chance to maybe impact the game more, from a different perspective if I learned it from a different side of things in the coaching world.
Yeah, you definitely did. What exactly does a quality control? And you said you started in scouting. Maybe you can go a little bit more in depth there.
Yep. As far as scouting goes, basically a scouting intern, scouting assistant, however you want. Every team will kind of do things a little bit differently, but a lot of your work will be mainly in house. You'll be in the building in whatever city team that you're working for, and helping with day-to-day stuff. If any other coaches need help making an extra cut up, on certain players, certain schemes, whatever, you'll be asked to do some things like that. And then other just typing in, coach, or it's changed a little bit now because it's a little bit more digitized with the way they do things. But, coach send, or a scout that's on the road sends some stuff in that they want to be typed up into the database for each individual player's reports and all that. You would do stuff like that. And then they usually, will give you like maybe 10 schools on your own that you usually local, so that you can kind of get some experience, and you would go visit those schools and do the job of a road scout, and go talk to the coaches, go talk to support staff at, these small schools, or even just, like around here, like you would go to like Duquesne, Robert Morris, even, WVU, some of the other D2 schools, and they have one or two guys, you go and check in. Hey, who do you got that's coming up that's draft eligible? You watch some film on them, you do your reports, you get your character report. And then if you get a chance, go see them play live, or if you're there that day and they have practice, you see practice, watch live practice, you kind of see how they interact with people, when they're not being watched, when, a lot of guys can put on a good show when they know the cameras are on and everything, but kind of want to see what a person's really about. So that's kind of the scouting intern part. And then you kind of grow and graduate a little bit the next year. You get to go on the road more at about 20 schools, get to hit, for us, just being around here, got to go to like Akron, Boston College, a couple of like little schools, smaller D1, group of 5 schools, just to kind of get your feet wet in that. And then that would be the fall aspect of it. And then when you get into like this time of year, Senior Bowl, you go to the Senior Bowl, you're doing a lot of stuff for the coaches, or for the scouts there. You're watching a position group with the practices, taking notes daily on each position group, each guy. And then at the end, you watch the game and everything, and then you write a little report on who your best guy, who you thought the best guys by position were. You do that for all the, a lot of those bowl games, and then same thing in the combine. You're doing a lot of that from the combine. You'll have a position. You'll help out with interviews. That's probably the biggest role of an intern or scouting assistant. Is there's a big place at the combine. It's called the train station. It's basically where it is. It's an old train station, and every team has a table, and coaches have all your one day it'll be defensive guys, and that they go by the groups that they're in, and all your position coaches sit at the table, and you're running around and getting guys and doing little interviews on the side, and then okay, here's my position coach, let's talk to him. So then now, why that's important is because it's a cluster. I mean, it really is. It hasn't changed in how many years of the combine, and it's still a nightmare for a lot of people, but it's where a lot of good information gets accessed. And then once you get to the next phase, when you get closer into draft meetings and when the guys come for the top 30 visits, then you're again helping with getting guys around, going out to dinner with them with the coach. You go out with maybe the position coach, or if they can't go, you'll take them out to dinner and just have a meal with them just to kind of get to know them on a personal level. And then when we finally get into the last aspect of it, the actual draft meetings, you're pretty much just in there. And if you did a report on the guy, you read your report, and or if you didn't, one of the other coaches or scouts may say, "Hey, well, you saw him this game, even though you didn't write a report. What did you think?" So you kind of put your 2 cents into there. So that's really kind of the scouting aspect of it. When you're an intern and assistant, you're kind of learning the ropes a little bit. Long story short, whether you're quality control or like a scouting assistant, you're basically like a GA at the professional level, where you'll have some responsibilities, but you're also getting indoctrinated into what's required. But no, I definitely enjoyed the scouting side of it. It was just when I knew I was guaranteed to have a job when I was done with it, I took that rather than waiting to see what may happen. So,
Yeah.
But no, I know you guys ask, quality control wise, that's again something that depends on. I mean, that's one point of contention right now. I know with a lot of people are sizes of staffs. Like I know just in general, the Steelers have one of the smallest staffs in the National Football League. So there's only one quality control guy on either side of the ball, whereas there are some teams that legitimately have 2 or 3 on each side of the ball, which can get to be a little too much, just because there is only so much work to do. So basically as a quality control guy, like I said, when you start a week, like you're always ahead of the other team. So say we're playing the Bengals this week, but next week we got Kansas City. The following week we have Green Bay. You're breaking down and doing all the data entry for all of those teams ahead of time. You're still doing the prep work, helping with the game plan and printing all the, helping making sure all the drawings are done for the installs and everything that you're doing that week, but you're also breaking down the opponent. So you, along with the advanced scout and the scouting department, you guys are the first eyes that really get on the next week's opponent. So you'll kind of give a little bit of a insight to the coaches before they get started really heavy, that following Monday evening to Tuesday of the following week. And then on the field, again, you're helping with the coach of position. Some guys ask you to run drills, some don't. Just depends on who you're working with. You'll run a practice. You may help with meetings. Like I know one of my responsibilities in meetings, I did all the personnel breakdown. So on that Wednesday when we would do an install meeting for a team, one coach broke down all the pass game. The next did all the run game. I did all the breakdown. Here's their top guys on, for us, offensive line, since I'm on the defensive perspective. Here's their best lineman. Here's their weakest lineman. Here's their best run carrier, ball toter. Here's their best targets, what they do well, what they don't do well, and any little things there. So it's a lot. You wear many hats. It's a way to again, learn and continue to grow, and where you may be coaching on one side, but you're learning a little bit about everything and try to help. It helps you round your ability as a coach.
I think the stuff about the combine is super interesting, especially to like a casual fan, like not like thinking that when guys go to the combine, they're just getting, how fast they are, how high they can jump, how much they can lift, but that there's a whole other process that goes on in the back with those days where you're getting information on these guys. Like I think people like that's one of those things that I want more people to know about for sure.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like the Combine, the Senior Bowl, Shrine, GC, any of these All-Star games, any of these, they're just opportunities to get more eyes and to get to know these people, because you got to get to know the guys, get to know the players, because you're making $1 million investments on somebody. So you got to know who they are as a person, because there's numerous accounts of guys that were uber talented, but they just didn't have that character. And it all matters. And that's why, like I said, when you go, like when you're the scouts, like you're going to see them live and see what they can do, but you can watch that on tape. Everybody can see that. But it's more so to get to know what kind of individual they are. How do they treat the cafeteria workers? How do they treat the student trainers? How do they treat, how are they in class? Whatever, they give you problems with anything. Are they late? And then even goes back to high school. I mean, you look all the way back into it as much as you can. Like, I mean, I forgot to mention one of the other things a scouting intern does is during draft meetings when other people are reading like their reports, you're scouring social media. You're looking through their Twitter. You're looking through their Instagram. You're looking through everything to see if there's anything on there that may raise an eyebrow that wasn't brought up in the character report that the scouts did. Do they have a girlfriend, whatever, or there's pictures of, drinking on there, or guns, or anything that may end up causing a problem with the league. You kind of looking for all that and trying to, again, cover every basis. Because, I mean, and then in the combine, that's the other thing. You're doing that again. I mean, it's just all checkpoints. I mean, that's all it is. From the time July and August hits, you're just checking boxes as you go to get as much information as you can. Most teams, when you get like the higher round guys that you're really considering, you're gonna interview them one-on-one with the coaches and GM in a room, and the night interviews at the combine. You'll also get a chance. Your position coaches will talk to them in that train station type setting, and then if there's one that you don't get enough information on, or you might have more questions, then that's where like the top 30 visits come in. That'll come starting usually like April or so, where those guys get flown around into the actual cities and they spend the night, and you go to dinner, you sit down, you get on the board with them. You kind of, again, try to really get to know the person.
So I'm sorry, Mike. I have a follow-up to that, because I'm sitting here wondering, you were talking about how some organizations are talking about how maybe their staffs are a bit bloated, right? So my question with that is, when it comes down to draft day, like just NFL specifically, when it comes down to draft day, how much of all that work legitimately goes into the decision?
It's all incorporated. Everything, draft day itself it's there. I mean, the board's set.
Right.
Well, however it falls, you go, you pick it. This guy goes, we go to our next guy, your next. So, I mean, all that legwork really plays into factors. Not to get too much into the nitty gritty, but like teams will all have like a grade. They all grade it a little bit differently, but they'll have a grade of you as an athlete, like just a pure athlete. This is his athletic ability. Here he is as a football player. And then they'll put that together and give you your overall grade on what type we think you're a first round, second round, third round, free agent, whatever. But then they also have, we would call it an intensity grade, which is basically just your character. You could be a really good player, but if you're a horrible person off the field, you're going to get that can knock you down in rounds. Like you could be a first round talent athletically, but you got some issues that are red flags. Okay, well, you may be there in the first round when we pick, but we won't take you until the third round. Or some guys, you could be a first round talent, but you'll have a reject grade, which we won't touch you with a 10-foot pole. It just that's all the legwork that goes into all that.
I just got names going through my head as you're describing each of these things. That's why, like, I just got all these names in my head.
There's plenty of examples, and it's something that matters. I mean, that's why, like I said, anybody can tell like talent, but as to be a true good evaluator, you got to be able to judge people. You can find little flaws, and you get more skilled and more detailed, and you get trained, a better trained eye the more you do it, as far as what makes this guy better than that guy, but it's really trying to get to the nitty-gritty and find out what's in here with a lot of people, because that's really what separates a lot of guys. Because when you get to that level, whether it's NFL or any level of pro football, you're the top 1%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. And one of my mentors, a guy I work for, Mike Tomlin, he says it all the time. I mean, there's a very fine line between being a practice squad player and being an all-pro. I mean, it is a very fine line, and that's why a lot of these things matter, is because you can find intangibles that help a guy stand out, from the next.
And you were talking about draft day with your big board.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's seen the movie Draft Day, and
yep.
It's not at all like that.
Not a chance. I mean, that's so far fetched. It's unbelievable.
Like, there's Kevin Costner, guys.
I mean, he sells it. I'll watch it. I was a scouting assistant when that came out. I remember it was a talk like, wow, that don't really make sense. Why we even? But because by that point you're not on draft day. You're not going to just all of a sudden just find out that this guy doesn't do this or that. Like occasionally, like a Laramie Tunsil thing will happen where a picture gets leaked, because someone's trying to sabotage it or whatever. But that's when it comes down to, you got to trust your scouts, you got to trust yourself and the people, your sources, and the people that you talk to, that either this guy is a good guy or not, or it's not true, it is true. But those are so rare. I mean, that's very rare. I mean, like I said, draft day is the easy part. All the legwork's been done. It's let's just see where it falls, and you kind of go from there. Maybe trades happen. I mean, all that. But, that's stuff that was way above my pay grade. I didn't get into that. I was just the low man and seeing what happens.
When you were a scout, you're going city to city, seeing stuff. I remember you sent me a picture. You were at Yankee Stadium watching some small game nobody even knew was happening, and you were there.
Lehigh Lafayette.
What are some of those cool stories of just places you'd never think that you went to?
Oh, there's a bunch. That was one thing that I learned real early on. Whether it was catered towards scouting, but it really is with coaching as well. One of the guys that I looked up to, and a lot of guys looked up to because he was a legend in the scouting game, is Mark Gorsak, who just retired from the Steelers. He's did the 40 at the combine, but he said something to me real early on with this. He said, use the job because the job's going to use you. Especially that's even more so as a scout. You're going to be gone. You're going to be away from your family 4 or 5 days out of the week, sometimes 2 weeks straight, whatever, however your schedule's set up. But while you're in those places, put yourself together, make your schedule to where you're working, you get your work done, but then, okay, I'm in New York, I'm in Manhattan, or I'm in Boise, Idaho, or I'm in, God knows where, I'm in Wyoming, wherever, and go see something, go do something that you don't normally get a chance to do. So that's one thing I've taken from, I've got flown in to go see a workout, and, you're there the night before, there's nothing to do. So I'm in South Bend, Indiana in the middle of May. I'll go to a South Bend Cubs game, low A baseball. I'm in Boise, Idaho, and there's an Idaho State Penitentiary that was on like one of those ghost hunter shows or whatever. So let's go tour that after you're done with everything. So those are a couple that kind of stood out to me. So I would do a lot of stuff like that. Being a sports guy in general, I would always try to incorporate if I could. Maybe there's NBA game in the city or a hockey game. You're going to Tampa, no reason to be in Tampa. Let me go see the Lightning play Ovechkin in the Caps one time. Or we're in St. Pete for Blesto meetings, which is scouting meetings. All right, everybody else is just going to dinner or going back to the room. They're done. I'm going to drive down to Clearwater instead. I'm going to go see the Marauders play with the Threshers or whatever Clearwater is. So see the Pirates low A and the Phillies low A, and go see the Josh Bells and Jamison Tyons and that of those guys, those elk when they were in low A ball. Just doing stuff like that, taking advantage of it. So those are a couple of the main ones that stuck out to me.
The low A ball. I was stationed when I was in the Marine Corps. I was stationed in California, and where I was in the high desert at the time, we had 3 high A teams within an hour, and I used to go to single A, high A baseball games 3 times a week. Like I went to the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. Sorry, that is hard to say. The High Desert Mavericks, which they're no longer there. They're gone. And the Inland Empire 66ers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, single A baseball is like, and this was back in 2006, 2007, like the best time. The best time.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I always would try to, like I said, do something like that. That I have interest. I'm a sports guy. I always was, and I try to do something related. Like God knows when else am I going to be in Boise, Idaho, or Salt Lake City, Utah, or I'm not going to get. I've gotten a chance. Go up to Park City, eat lunch in Park City while you're there for a second. See where the Olympic Village was. Excuse me. So yeah, it is one of the advantages, and I've been blessed to do a lot of big things. Whether it was the NFL or even getting into the stuff that I've done since, but use the game because it's going to use you. Take advantage of it.
So when you started coaching at St. Vincent,
Mm-hmm.
you coached at Woodland Hills, you coached at we haven't even got into the post Steelers stuff.
Yep.
But you coached there. What is the differences by level of coaching? Is it more coaching a player? Is it more teaching life? Okay.
By levels, I'm helping out coaching high school and stuff now in between things here and have in the past. The biggest difference is the high school kids, you're truly teaching fundamentals. You're teaching from the ground up. There's some kids that have talent. We have D1 kids. We got 3 or 4 kids right now that have D1 offers. But then you have also other kids that barely ever stepped on a football field before a year ago. So you're not so much worried about scheme at that level as you are develop the player skill set wise, and then also, like you just said, develop the man, develop the person off the field, and teach them, try to teach them what it takes to be successful, not just in the game of football, but in life in general. And then as you get up, no matter what level of college, it's really the same thing. You're coaching men, you're developing men. Whether they're young boys growing into men or they're already grown ass men, you're trying to cultivate and develop that as well. It just you can get more scheme detail as you go, but even just from the NFL to the AAF to the USFL, you're teaching less scheme in the USFL and those AAF than you are in the NFL just because of the time constraints. Like last year with the Maulers, I hadn't worked or we haven't seen or worked with anybody before like March of that year. And when we come to training camp, you got a month of training camp and then you go play a game. So you can't have the same integral schemes and all that you would at the NFL level because you don't have rookie minicamp and then minicamp and then OTAs and then another month of training camp and then you play 3 preseason games and then you play a regular and then it's time to go. Or here you got a month, you may have 1 scrimmage. Okay, now we're playing real games. So you're trying to showcase those guys, and how you showcase it, keep it simple, let them play fast, let their athletic ability play out for the NFL scouts and kind of go from there. So that's really the biggest difference in how you teach those guys is just really comes down to knowing people and knowing what level that you're working with and what they do well and don't do well.
You coached the Steelers during the kind of glory years around here when Big Ben was in charge and they were really good. You had that game in Cincinnati when Antonio Brown got knocked into the coma that he's in right now. What happened that night after the game?
Oh, that was chaos in general from the time the Perfect picked it off and ran into the end zone till then. It's just chaos is really what happened. I never, see anything like it. It was a lot of like, I can't, you always had faith. You knew you're going to be in it, but still it was that didn't expect that to happen. And then it was just leaving the stadium. One of the crazier things I remember was just like riding the bus out and just people trying to shake the bus. They're cutting off the police escort, MF and everybody. Like it was chaos. And, Pac-Man Jones going crazy on Jerry, aka Joey Porter, and it was just chaos. But it was exhilarating. It really was. There was a lot of big time games I've been a part of on a small level because I'm not doing much in the game. They're not asking my opinion. I'm just telling them what personnel is coming in the game, so we know what to put into the game defensively and helping out in any way I can there. But it was chaos. Pretty much any game in Cincinnati was chaos, especially in those perfect Killer B era days. And I guess that just got flamed even more from what he said yesterday or 2 days ago or something I saw on social medias. So, but it was fun. Those games are always fun. It's always a real rivalry.
Seth?
I had muted myself. I apologize. I just wanted to. So I want to. I don't know if Mike wants to ask anything going back. So I'm ready to. I want to hear what happens when you leave Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Well, pretty much like I said, I was kind of always the plan to, hey, I can't be. We talked. You can't always be a quality control guy. You got to branch yourself out. Get your own room, run your own unit, your team, whatever it may be. So after the 2018 draft, I left, took a job with the Alliance of American Football with the Birmingham Iron, through the help of John Mitchell. John Mitchell was one of the guys that was key into that. Getting to work with some former Steelers. Tim Lewis was the head coach, former Steelers defensive coordinator. So I got to work with him. I got a job ended up coaching corners there. And doing some other stuff, kind of getting small staff. So I had to do some QC work too, but got a really chance to run the room and do all that. And that was going well. I mean, I had to move to Birmingham and, left my family here, but, that was one step just to kind of, take that next step to get to where I was looking to get to, within this profession. That was going really well in 2019 until everything, we kind of had heard rumblings. You knew it was kind of on shaky ground financially. We were 5-3, had a pretty decent defense, clinched the playoffs, and then by Wednesday of that next week, I was back home in Pittsburgh because everything went bankrupt. So during that time, that's like April, May of 2019, and there's no real jobs open. That's not a hiring time. Everybody in NFL is already in OTAs and has their staffs and everything set. Same thing with colleges. There may have been some small school stuff, but I just didn't feel like moving my family for little money. So I decided, well, let's take a couple months off here and regroup here in January once the next hiring cycle starts, and just decided I'll go back and help in my high school, give back to the kids, and try to grow there. So I did that for a year, and then getting into January, February 2020, starting to look for a job, feelers out there, see what's going to be going on. And then the whole world shut down in March. So that kind of put a halt to that for another about year and a half. Teams weren't hiring, or if they were, their budgets were getting cut, and it wasn't. So it was a little different. So stayed at St. Vincent, before I got to St. Vincent, stayed at Woodland Hills, was the defensive coordinator there and helped out for those seasons. And then in about June of 2022, I got a call to go back to St. Vincent where I had started, but now this time as the defensive coordinator. So did that July 1st to 2022, went back to St. Vincent, which is a D3 school, so lower level school. Money wasn't great, but it's not really about money. It's about taking care of my family. It was enough to take care of my family. And I just love ball. I just wanted to stay in ball. So went back and did that. In the spring before that in 22, I also had done kind of like I was doing a advanced scouting type stuff for the Maulers in the first season of the rebirth of the USFL because I had some relationships with Kirby Wilson and then Jaron Horton, who was the DC I had met during my time with the Steelers. He was at Vandy. He came up and did some interviews. He was just coming to hang out during camp, and we hung out, and I'd break down film with him, and we just sit and talk ball. So just building that relationship, and it's one of the ways that it kind of all came full circle, a year or two later. So we did that, and then after St. Vincent, knew I was going to be able to get a full-time spot with the Maulers in 23 here for this past season. So did that, was trying to work it out to where I stayed at St. Vincent in the fall because with the USFL and these spring leagues, you don't have a lot to do in the offseason. You do some player evaluation and signing free agents and stuff, but a lot of it's done, 90% of it can be done remotely, so it's not a heavy commitment like it is in the NFL. So wasn't able to work it out, so just decided to go back and stay with the USFL and be in pro football because ultimately that's where I wanted to be and do want to be. I like the pro football landscape, and had one of the best years. This was one of the best years I've ever been a part of outside of the Steelers are probably the pinnacle in anything I've ever done, obviously, but this year was that next step. I mean, I was coaching the entire secondary, and we had the number one scoring and number one defense in every single category but one. We were second in rush defense by I think a percentage or 0.2 yards or something. So, and helped turn around one of the worst teams in the league into playing in the championship game. So that's kind of brings it, it brought it full circle back to where we are today. Obviously the merger happened here. For those that may not know, XFL, USFL merges and they cut the league in half. So that's kind of where I sit now, just trying to buy my time to find my next, job back in pro football. And until then, I'll keep giving back to the community because that's really what it's all about. So
with all of those teams levels, what is the life of a coach? What is your day-to-day operation?
The life of the coach is hectic, that's for sure. You never know. Day-to-day really just depends in season, out of season. In season, pretty much NFL-wise, pro football-wise, Tuesdays are your heavy days. Those are your days that you grind. Monday, Tuesdays, you're there till, 10, 11, 12 at night, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning. When you're getting there at 6, 6:30, some coaches are even earlier than that. Just all depends on how you work. And those 2 days, Mondays and Tuesdays, are heavy. You're recapping kind of what you did the week before, the game prior. And then the Tuesday is just full on, full bore towards your next opponent, breaking them down, seeing what they do. You meet with the coaching staffs, pretty much all morning long you'll work. Some coaches do it differently, but, you work in the mornings, eat some lunch, and then you'll come back as a unit. Offense will meet with the offense, defense will meet with the defense, kind of put your game plan together for a couple hours. Once your game plan's put together, then it comes back into, okay, how we got to get ready for practice. All right, we got 3-4 periods of inside, or got a period inside run or team run. You got 7-on-7. You got another team period, special category, meaning like third down, red zone, etc. So then the night on Tuesdays is really getting those cards prepared, drawing the cards up off film, their high frequency concepts, different things like that, and then putting those into getting those to the quality control guy, and then he sorts them into, all right, we want to see this versus this call, that versus that call, and then that takes up the mostly your night there, and then getting the last part of it is getting anything ready that you would need to present to your group, to your position group, to your unit on Wednesday when you do the install meetings and everything. And then you go and practice Wednesday. Those will vary differently. Some guys practice early in the morning and want to get their guys out early. Others will wait a little bit later and practice mid-afternoon and then keep guys later. That's just all staff related. And then Thursday's another practice day. One you watch practice. You go out, you practice, review the film from the night before. Is there anything or from that day, anything we need to clean up? Then you get into Friday. As you get into Friday, you're getting into more of a concentrated practice. Usually we would call it like perfect Fridays or, mistake-free Fridays where you're honing in on it's all situational football. You'll start with short yardage and goal line, then you get in the red zone and you get in third down, you get backed up, you get into what you're going to like that week to call. You run through that, and then Fridays you're usually out a little bit earlier, around 2-3 o'clock, like a normal, I don't want to say a normal person, but like a normal 9 to 5 type of job. And then Saturdays, if you play on, this is all obviously if you play on a Sunday, and then Saturdays, you get back in, you have some more meetings, final touch-ups of what you want to do. You hit a quick little walkthrough, mock game, whatever you want to call it, and then guys are free to kind of go. Those are usually like the family type days. You got kids, bring your kids to practice that day, and that depends on the head coach and the staff, but they're usually a little bit more loose. Hey, let's get work done and go head home, spend time with your family, and then it would depend. If you travel, then that's a travel day. Usually got to be at the airport, show up at the airport by like 3 o'clock, and you're gone, get to the hotel, again, meet as a staff, or not a staff, and then units, and then as a team, wrap it up, go to bed. Same thing really if you're at home, except you just don't travel. Everybody meets at a hotel in town, even when we're playing a home game. Pretty much every player stays there. Some of the vet guys get free access to either leave that night or leave early in the morning, and they can go back and spend time with their families. But pretty much everybody's in the hotel. We meet, done, get up the next morning, and go play. That's just in season. Well. And then off season, it would just come down to if it's college, you got recruiting and season wrap up, self-scouting yourself. What do we got to improve on, et cetera. NFL, it isn't so much scouting. I mean, it's scouting, but it's more the senior bowls and the shrine and stuff that we had talked about earlier. Now that's where the coaches get more heavily involved. The scouts have been doing all the scouting up until that point. Now the coaches get their chance to see the guys in their position groups, how they stack up with everything else that they're seeing throughout the league. And now the coaches get in on the evaluation side of it then too. So in the off season for coaches, it's a little more like 9 to 5-ish. You're working 7, 8, 10-hour days, but nothing too hectic. But then you travel a little bit, with pro days and combines and all that. But it's a nonstop thing. It really is there is no paid vacation. There's none of that. Like you get time off and all that, but you can't. There's no sick days. Is really what I'm getting at. Like if I don't feel good, you're coming in, and now they may tell you get out of here before you infect everybody, but you grind. It's a grind, but it's rewarding because you're doing something you love. You don't feel like it's work, and you're helping develop another human being, and that's really what I like out of it because you're helping develop somebody to do something that you wanted to do, but you just weren't God-gifted athletic ability. Like, I mean, let's be honest. I was a 5'7" white guy that ran like a low 540. So like 5 flat 40. My dreams died in D3 football. That's where it was going to be. There's only so many Wes Welkers of the world. So I knew I had the game above the neck and understood football and could learn it more and wanted to be a teacher because that's ultimately what a coach is. You're a teacher.
Yeah.
I like it, man. Good on you. Like that sounds like an immense amount of responsibility for a lot of people and their careers and a professional organization or even a lower organization. I quit coaching after I did 4th through 8th grade football. And by 8th grade football, I had enough. Like my buddy went up and became the guy that was the head coach of the team I was on, went up and became the freshman head coach and wanted me to come along. And I said, no, thanks. Like high school was one, like just going like 4th through 8th grade boys. That's, but we practiced 8 hours a week and had games, so like all full-time jobs, hanging out with kids. But I knew just one step up, you go to high school, and then you're talking about way up here. There's just, I can't imagine it for myself. So that's awesome. You're killing it.
It's a lot. It's a sacrifice is one of the biggest things, because you gain a lot from it, but you sacrifice a lot. I spent the last 4 months, from March to July, I was home maybe once a week. I was living, luckily enough, we were in Canton, Ohio, so living in Canton, but it's 2 hours away. Fridays were our light day, so I'd come home and pick my kids up from school and do all that on Fridays at least. But there's some coaches that, you don't get that opportunity. You're gone from your family a lot of the year. So it is a sacrifice, and it's something that you can't do without a support system. Like, if coaches' wives are the ones that are really the rock stars a lot of the times, or significant others, whatever. It's if they're not bought into it and they don't believe in it, you ain't doing this very long. Whether it's high school, college, whatever. Yes, the time commitment's more. I'm working 90 to 100 hours, 80 to 100 hours a week in the NFL, and didn't do it. You don't have to do that as much in the spring pro football world, but it's still a grind. You're still doing things, and still in high school, you're still grinding. But like you just said, at least this ain't Texas. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm in Pittsburgh. It's not Texas and all that, where you got high school coaches making $70,000-$80,000 a year. Pittsburgh. You got to work to find a full-time regular job. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're not. I understand it's not Texas, but Pittsburgh's not a slouch when it comes to high school football.
No, I'm just saying from the coach's perspective, like the stipends and what coaches get paid, you can't make a living off of that. You have to have a real job. Like, that's kind of where I'm getting into now. Like, still exploring pro opportunities, but I know I'm going to be the D coordinator at Woodland Hills if I'm still around, if I don't get an NFL job. So what's the best job I can get that supports my family, that also allows me the time that is actually required to coach and give back to the kids? That's the hard thing for high school coaches in this area is, if you're not a teacher, it's hard. You got that's the biggest thing. And if I have one regret, that would probably be my one regret, is that when I went to college, I should have went for education. I went for communication and marketing, and just because that's a general degree and I can get you whatever. Now, that's a whole nother story we can get into. Degree really don't even matter right now. It's as long as you got a piece of paper, then they'll teach you what they want to teach you if they want to hire you. So that would be my one regret. I should have went to be like a history teacher or something. That way, if the coaching stuff in the NFL didn't work out, there's teaching jobs more readily available than me trying to figure out what to do outside just so I could still coach.
I'm just going to follow that up by saying personal belief on this one. Don't leave yourself out. Go be what you want to be, man. Mm-hmm. Commit. I love it. I fucking love it. By the way, I live in Wisconsin, so our coaches for D5, like the head coaches are. The head coach for my high school is making a better living than me. I'll just say that. Like, it's something else here in Wisconsin. I don't know how much people know about Wisconsin football, but the top tier teams in Milwaukee and Madison area, those coaches get paid very, very good money.
Yeah, it is. It just depends on where you are. I just know the it's just different. It depends on the district that you're into and everything else. And it's a good, like you said, you can make a really good living. It's just a matter of having the right support system around it and everything. So it's fun. I just want to if I can't be where I want to be, this is the next place I want to be because I feel I can make more of an impact on the youth and the kids in our community because they see a guy that, like myself, that I got out of here. Even though I still live in the area and everything, but I've gotten to experience everything. Football's taken me a lot of places, and I made it. We have 17 or so guys that made it to the NFL just from my high school, and we've only been a high school for 33 years or so now. 1987 was the first year our high school was created, so we put a lot of guys, and I'm one of the only ones that's on that wall that's not a player. So it's just giving those kids a different example that you want to make it in football. It isn't, or just making it in life in general. You can get out of here. You don't need to just be the superstar athlete to go to get that scholarship and go. There's a lot of other ways you can go. I mean, you could attest to that. The military is another way. There's a lot of different options, and they just need people that are willing to guide and give them the push them on that right track.
Yeah, I think that's a very inspiring message that you just gave right there. It's not just about sports. You can make it in life by being a good person.
Absolutely. Because in general, this is like I have conversations with people all the time about hiring and et cetera and this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL, if it's college, if it's Amazon, if it's the corner store down the street, it don't matter. It's all about relationships and how you treat people and building those relationships because a lot of like every job that I've ever had in the coaching profession or just in general really wasn't because other than I got the interview with the Steelers, but it's because I had a relationship with people previous. They knew the type of person I was, they know the type of worker I am and the type of individual I am. That's what gets you that interview or that first foot in the door. It's not because you have this stellar resume and I have 2 MBAs and this, that, and the other. Yeah, that's all well and good, but it's about the relationships you build and cultivating those relationships.
Absolutely. There is an issue at hand here. We have the Super Bowl coming up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see scheme-wise, breakdowns, anything, any advice for anybody that be watching this on what's going to happen in that game?
A repeat of 2019. Pretty similar, I think. These guys do what they do. Andy Reid and Shanahan are 2 of the better offensive minds in football. But on a different note, and what people don't pay attention to as much, they're starting to get the credit now, but 2 very good defenses. Both defenses are solid, not just by personnel and who they have, the Joey Bosa's of the world and Chase Young's, even though he seems to take plays off now since he got out of Washington, it looks like, or at least is rumored to. But, you're going to see it's going to be a sound, fundamental football game. This is the best of the best. Really, obviously, defense wins games, wins championships, as they say, but it's ultimately going to come down to the quarterback play. Can Brock Purdy manage the game, or will Pat do Pat things and take things over and raise everybody else's level? Because really, that's kind of the difference. And everybody takes game manager as like a form of disrespect. I know Cam Newton was getting killed like a month ago for saying that, but it is just the reality. Like, there's high-level game managers and then there's low-level game managers. That's not a knock. That's just what you are. You're not a guy that's going to take over a game and elevate. You need that system or you need the talent around you to be where you're at. Like, you're in the Super Bowl for a reason. I'm not hating on Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a solid, way above average NFL quarterback. I mean, that's why he's there. But then you have those aliens like Patrick Mahomes and even the Josh Allens and all these guys. Like, that's what wins at that level. I know we're talking Super Bowl, but even if you just look at why spring leagues and things kind of struggle sometimes, has nothing to do with the receivers, the DBs, the linebackers. Those skill guys are there for days. The reason those leagues tend to come and go so much is because quarterback play and O-line play. There are only so many human beings walking this earth that can do those positions at a high level. And if they're that good, they're in the NFL. So, that goes back, circling back to the Super Bowl. That's where I see, even though schemes are pretty similar, both kind of West Coast based guys, it's going to come down to individuals making plays. Both defenses are good. Both are going to be able to be schemed up, especially with 2 weeks. You give good coordinators 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent. You're not going to surprise anybody. It's going to come down to execution and which guys make the plays. I know it's an old school saying, but big time players got to make big time plays in big time games.
So I have a question on this. Everyone thinks about people talk about the halftime adjustments. As a fan, I'm a Bears fan, and one of the things that I absolutely hated about my team all season was that they just seemed incapable of making adjustments as the game went on. They just did the same thing. Mm-hmm. Do you think that is gonna, because I mean, obviously it played a huge part in the NFC Championship game. If you're looking at it that way, is that real? Is it a situation where you go in and you can break down the first half that quick and you can say, okay, they're doing something that we never had on film, or we never knew about, or we have to change our cadence because they have us pegged? Is that something you pick up that you can pick up and adjust that quick, legitimately, or is it overblown in fans' minds?
To me, it's extremely overblown, because let's just look at reality. Other than the Super Bowl, you have 12 minutes from the time that first half ends till the second half is kicked off. And usually it takes coaches that are in the box 2 minutes just to get down. They got to hold elevators and do all this crazy stuff just to get us into the locker room. So really, those adjustments you kind of said it earlier, it's not halftime adjustments, it's in game. Those adjustments are going on literally after every single series you're coming off. In the NFL, it's different than the USFL. USFL, we had actual video. We could see the last play 30 seconds after it happened. Boom, we're watching it. But NFL, you have the surfaces, and you're looking at, there's 4 screenshots. Here's pre-snap, right after the snap, a little bit further. So you're looking at it and going, okay, that's a look we haven't seen. All right, here's what they did. Okay, yeah, we're good here. We can stay with that. Or, nah, that's something that I don't like how that looked. Let's try this. Let's adjust to this. And then you come back the next series, same thing. And then that's one of the other jobs of one of the coaches. Every time coaches are making calls, but there's always somebody in the box writing down what's been called. And, okay, we ran this versus this, so I know that worked or that didn't work. Or we're starting to get a tendency of we'll run heavy on first down. Let's switch it up. Let's throw a play action pass this next first down just to keep them on their toes. So there's in-game adjustments like that. A lot of the halftime stuff is just, it's a way to get guys off their feet. Okay, hey, we've been talking about these little things here through the first couple quarters. Here's the summary of everything. This is what we're going to do when they do this. Get off your feet. Coaches get a chance to talk to the whole group or your individual position groups, depending on how they like to split it up. And then it's, all right, let's go right back and get to work. That's what always interests me about the Super Bowl. We lost in the AFC Championship game. I never got a chance to go, but that 25 minutes now that it is compared to 12, how do you take advantage of that? Do you do a little bit more than you normally would, or do you keep your same routine but just start it later and let the guys just kind of chill for a little bit and get off their feet and then start stretching so they aren't getting too tight and too cold? So just long story short, yeah, it's overblown. If you're not making those adjustments in game as you go, and if you wait to halftime to make a real adjustment, you're probably a dollar too short. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there may be something that happened in the last 2-minute drive. Yeah, you got to adjust that, and you're going to summarize everything that happened, but you can't fix everything in 10 minutes.
Who do you think are X factors for this game?
From the San Francisco side, really it's McCaffrey, obviously. C-Max is a game changer, because he's a guy that, has the hype of he can do it all, catch the ball at the backfield, do all that. But really it's how he wears on a team and a defense. Like if you even notice last week, it's 2 or 3 yards here, 4 yards here. And then when it really mattered at the end, pops one for 20 and making a play there. The other X factors on their offense to me is their front. Their offense. Trent Williams is the best in football. He's one of the most athletic human beings I've ever seen in my life. There's not many big dudes that can do what he does, and he changes what you can do. When you can pull a tackle as much as they do and a lot of the misdirection counter stuff that they do and be effective with it, with him in space, that makes a huge difference. The receiving core, Ayuk's going to do what he does, the Jennings of the world, guys like that. It's really going to come down to what does Purdy do? Does he – because Shanahan's going to scheme it up well. There's going to be opportunities to make throws. Are you going to make the throws? You can make the right reads and get the ball where it needs to be and take care of the football. If they do that, those X factors are going to be there. Kansas City offensively, really, again, it'll be Pacheco, I think. If they get the run game going, then it changes everything they do, because that's the one difference I think they've had this year. Even though they've struggled a little bit, they haven't had a legit running game like that from top to bottom, because you can't stop that. You can scheme it up if you want, but if you got a guy that can just run through tackles and wear on you and just create attrition as you go and put you in 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, that just opens up everything, especially for a guy like Andy Reid that's got, Mahomes under center. Kelce, obviously, Rashid Rice. And then they're going to need guys like MSV to make plays like he's had the last 2 weeks. What they missed during the regular season is what has happened in the last couple of weeks. Those, not fringe guys, but your second, your third receivers, your non-stars are going to have to make a play at some point. That's one thing, especially in games like this, when it's magnitude of this nature. We had a saying, Mike T has a saying all the time, known issues can't beat you. Don't let known issues beat you. If something else beats you, then okay, we can live with that. But you can't go into a Super Bowl and AFC Championship game and let, like Baltimore, the biggest thing they did wrong was you can't let Travis Kelce go 11 for 115 or whatever. Like, if they're going to beat you, then MSV or somebody else got to do it, or Pacheco got to do it. You can't let known issues beat you. And if you just look in general, look at some of the best Super Bowls and in games like that, there's plays made by people that people don't necessarily think that David Tyree catches, and Manningham, stuff like that. Guys that are good players, but they're not the superstars. Yes, your big time players got to make plays, but those role guys got to make some plays too. When you got Gary Russell scoring a touchdown in Super Bowl 43, just little things like that. But really, ultimately, I think it'll come down to defenses. Is Bosa going to have a Bosa type of game, or is Spags going to keep doing what he's done with that unit? They're a very aggressive unit, a lot of man pressures, and which is things you can do when you got dudes that can hold up. Sneed and was it McDuffie?
Nick
I think Bolton, exactly.
Yeah.
Chris Jones is Chris Jones. Tranquil, I thought, has played well the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
If you get guys that keep doing that and making plays, you're going to make it hard on San Francisco.
Yeah.
So
Nick Bolton's been an absolute stud for them.
And it even started last year. Again, unless you really are in the know, he wasn't a guy that anybody's paying attention to. And then, if I remember right, he had a scoop and score in the Super Bowl last year, and that's things like that. You have the big James Harrison making those plays. You guys that are known guys, but more often than not, it's guys that are just role players, or that's where they take that next step and make a name for themselves.
So if I set the over under for San Francisco sacks at 0.5, are you taking the over or under?
For San Francisco, I'd say over.
You think they're actually going to – I mean, he hasn't been sacked the entire postseason.
No, I think they'll get to him. I mean,
yeah.
You got Bosa, you got Chris Young, you got Jay Wobble inside, you got I was with in Pittsburgh, Hargrave. You got good interior rushers. But a lot of the times with guys like that, when you're playing Mahomes, it's not the first guy that's going to get him a lot of times. It's got to be the second or third. So your coverage on the back end, you got to do a good job of mixing things up. You can't give him the same look all the time. You got to be very multiple in your pre-snap looks. And, you play zone, you play man. To me, a guy like Mahomes, though, I wouldn't play a lot of man against any mobile quarterback. I think you got to be very, very calculated on when you call it. Like it boggled my mind. Even I forget who it was, Houston, I think a lot of, and when they were, and even KC did it a little bit, but I'd never play man against Lamar Jackson unless I'm bringing 6 and I know he ain't getting out of that pocket. Or even Mahomes. Mahomes may not be a guy that's going to go 80 on you, but he's very elusive in the pocket and is going to extend the play enough to make something happen. So it's rush and coverage got to work together. If you give him the same dose of everything, he's going to figure it out and pick you apart. And it don't matter if you bring pressure and you got 3 guys coming free. If he knows what he's seeing, the ball's going to be out before you can get there. I think he'll get sacked. I mean, there'll be something. Steve Wilkes is a good defensive coordinator, a long-time guy. He's been around. He'll mix things up with, for him too, but we'll see.
This phenomenal breakdown here. So you're saying that it's going to be a close game and then Patty Mahomes is going to pull it out late?
I think so. I think so. I could see a 24-21, 27-24, somewhere in there. Tight game. You'll be within 1 score most of the time. The only caveat there, the only way it won't be is if there's turnovers in that and you get some short fields and things like that, then it could get out of hand one way or the other. But both these defenses are good enough that I don't think it's going to be super high scoring because they may give up drives, but I don't see them giving up a lot of chunk. And that's where games get out of hand is when you give up chunk plays. You want to bend but don't break. These guys may give up some drives, but they're going to be – I think they're good situationally, and holding those 4-point plays, in the red zone and, let them kick field goals all day. I'll still be in a game for a long time. Even if they possess the ball and move it up and down the field, if I'm within 1 score, if all I got to do is make 1 play, then I got a good shot.
The Steelers beat the Chiefs that way when you were there. They just kept
100%.
kicking field goals. Yeah.
And that's why, that's the perfect example of why Andy Reid is a great coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's legendary. He's an extremely good offensive mind. But he hasn't really changed anything. He's adapted and adjusted to what they have. But he was still winning 10, 11, 12 games every year, whether he was in Philly or Kansas City with Alex Smith and whether it was Donovan or whoever he had. But that game that you're talking about in particular that everybody around here still freaks out about because that's the last playoff win. But when you play an Andy Reid coach team, a West Coast team like that, in certain situations, you know what's coming. You know it. Like a West Coast offense, you can, or if even Sean Payton's another one. On 3rd and short or goal line, if they're throwing the ball, you can expect somebody in the flat. You can't get beat to the flat in situational football. It's going to be a little quick play action or under boot, and they may put a fullback in the flat. Or it could be a receiver coming from the other side. It could be a tight end coming from behind going under. You may not know who or where it's coming from, but you know that whenever you structure yourself defensively, you've got to cover the flats because that's his number 1 read. That's where they want to go. Nobody loves a 1-yard touchdown pass more than a West Coast offensive coordinator. That's why if you look at the Drew Breeses and some of those guys, some of their numbers, now don't get me wrong, they're Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but numbers get inflated even more because you got to throw wide open 1-yard touchdown passes when you're playing sometimes in a West Coast system. That's really what's taken Andy to the next level is Pat. I mean, is he the best ever? I don't know, but he's trending that way and he's talented. He does a lot of things. He erases a lot of mistakes, and that's a difference maker. I mean, it really is. That's why it's so evident anymore. You can be the best defensive team in football, and you can win You can win a lot of games that way. But you got to have the quarterback position figured out, and you got to know what you want to do with it. And that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sitting here so sad as a Bears fan because I know that feeling so extremely well, watching us go through potentially another top quarterback, just shoot him up, spit him out, and we're gonna go and draft another one. Like it's so sad if you can't get that figured out, if you can't make that work. I mean, it just doesn't matter what else you do. Like it doesn't matter what else you do because you're restarting. You're looking for new offensive coordinators. You're looking for quarterback. You have to get that figured out. You have to if you want to win.
And I'll tell you right now, give me Justin Fields right now. I'll take him right now.
Yep.
Because it's just he got to be within a system that caters to him. Yeah, and to me, and this is where a lot of coaches go wrong, I think, at all levels. I don't care. It happens more so in college, I think. But I don't care what your scheme is. If you don't have the personnel to run that scheme, you are asking to be fired. You're asking to be sitting at home getting paid, which some guys just want that. I mean, I'll take a $77 million buyout or whatever too, but go sit home. But that's where guys go wrong. Like, I can use countless examples, like even playing D3, coaching D3 football at St. Vincent. What I've known, where I've been baptized, where I learned is through Dick LeBeau's 3-4 fire zone scheme and what we did with the Steelers with Mike T and doing a little bit of spot drop stuff too that we transitioned to once Coach LeBeau had left. But we don't have guys that can do that. I don't have corners that can cover. Because all fire zone coverage is man coverage, really. It's just a bastardized version of man. But if I don't have guys that play man well, why am I playing man? Like, I'm just asking to give up 400 yards a game. So go play spot drop defense and change and adapt and adjust to what you have. Or same thing, if I don't have a quarterback that's a good deep ball thrower, don't throw it deep often. Or if I have two running backs that are good, but I may be I'll use, the Steelers just hired Arthur Smith. He's more known for outside zone and wide zone stuff and, getting guys on a good track and going. Is Najee Harris that good of a zone runner? Probably not. He's more of a gap power guy, and you saw that. That's where they evolved this year and why they started doing a lot better and adapting to giving that because he give him a chance to hit it and get downhill. But now he'll have a chance. You adapt and adjust that. And he's shown that everywhere he's been. Good coaches adapt to what your personnel have because if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. Like if I could go out and coach a bunch of third graders and I'm the smartest guy in the world. And if they can't physically do it, what does it matter? Like who cares how smart I am? It doesn't matter. It's what you can get your players to do and what they know and getting them to see because that's what keeps you employed as a coach.
Absolutely. Because otherwise you're just set up for failure.
No question. And that's kind of, I think, where things get kind of missed. Like, you don't have, like, everybody's entitled to your opinion and fans have opinions and that. But until you're really, like, in the nitty gritty and know what happened, why that happened, it's hard to just sit there and kill guy. He sucks. This guy. Well, nobody in the NFL sucks. Like, they don't. And I know most people don't mean it that way unless you're a keyboard warrior. They just says stuff. But there's so much that goes into it, and I think that's where people, I think, tend to forget also. And that's why even though mainly we were never allowed to do it, but I would never gamble on any professional sport anymore because you forget that this is their job. This is our livelihood. and everybody has a job. Everybody goes to work in the world. Everybody has good days and bad days that have nothing to do with like their preparation for work that day. It's, I got a family member sick. My wife's mad. I got this kind of baby mama drama or something, or going through a divorce or whatever it could be. And they take that to work and can have a bad day that day. Whereas if you go to work and have a bad day, nobody cares. But if you go to bad work or have a bad day in the NFL, it can get you fired. And that's why the professionals and the guys that are elite at this are able to compartmentalize their problems and take things and leave it there. I know we're going kind of off topic, but I think it's valid to what goes on. I mean, we had a lot of sayings. Mike T don't have a lot of sayings on the wall or anything, but the one thing we ever had, and I've taken the kids in high school, college, it don't matter, is all it said was take the field. Just the glass door, and it said take the field. And all that meant is when you walk through those doors and step on that white line, it's time to clock in. We all have problems. We're all dealing with stuff in our lives. Now it's time to lock in and enjoy and go to work. And that's kind of what I tell our high school kids now, is a little bit different. Like, okay, I come from a low income urban area, so a lot of kids got real issues. And where's my next meal coming from? Where am I living this week, etc. Or my grades are bad, or girlfriend issues, or whatever. Man, forget all that. Let's go have fun. Let's go get this workout in. Let's forget everything, and then we can go help you with that issue later, figure something out later. But when we clock in, we put that helmet on and strap it up, it's time to go to work. And that's something that I think they can all take in life in general, that anybody can.
Absolutely.
I got my cats jumping up on me. I absolutely agree. I think it's fantastic. I hope you. So right now you're coaching with your high school. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's fantastic. Do you guys have a lot of youth programs out there? Like, do you do junior high football?
There's junior high football. There's junior high football. There's a ninth grade football. In most places, they'll have like just the ninth grade team, just the 7th and 8th grade team. And then there's also, they call it, well, I don't know if you're allowed to say it anymore. We used to call it midget football, but Pop Warner football. So you have like 12 and under, 11 under, 10 and under, et cetera.
Okay.
So there's there used to be 3 different organizations within our district. Now it's down to pretty much just one. But that's kind of
I'll say this, having experience with one of those organizations and helping, like, that is a great place. If anybody that watches this or listens, like, that is a great place to help kids the way we're talking about too. Those youth organizations and helping those kids learn. And it's really not about football. Like, I mean, it is obviously, but because you're hitting and you're wearing pads and you're doing things, but sports keep kids off the streets, guys.
Absolutely. And youth football, like, I know there's something going on in California that they're trying to like ban tackle football or whatever in general. And I think certain kids start too young personally. Like, I see little 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids running around. They look like a bobblehead trying to tackle. And yeah, they're probably not hurting anybody because they don't go hard enough to really create any contact. But I honestly don't think you should play tackle football till you're probably 10, 11 years old. I think kids from 6 till then, 6 years old to around there, go play flag. You can learn the game the same way, and it may help you even more because you can't just run somebody over because I'm bigger, faster than, or bigger and stronger. Now I got to learn how to have better feet, have better hips, move around, set my cuts up. You can learn different things of the game at a younger age that could help you when you get into tackle football. I think that's a big thing that needs to – that's why I kind of like seeing flag football growing as much as it does. I know our high school has a girls flag football team now. St. Vincent's starting a flag football team. It'll be a club sport. It's going to be in the Olympics. I think flag is something that's growing a lot, and I think needs to continue to be pushed because I think it'll help. It helps kids just as much And I've seen too many friends also that I didn't play until I was in ninth grade. I played other sports. I played baseball. I played basketball. I played hockey. I constantly was doing something, and all those sports helped me with football, and football helped me with those other sports. But it also helped me not get burned out. I know a lot of kids that were burned out by the time they hit ninth grade. They play in ninth grade, and they're like, "Man, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this." And it's a problem, I think, in a lot of areas, not just where I come from.
It seems like a lot of areas are becoming dominated by travel ball as well, for many sports, for baseball, basketball, and it turns into a situation where specialization happens way too young because of the cost, just simply because parents can't afford to let their kids play multiple sports. And it does. I think it's a really bad thing, and we need to get back into community sports. But that's a whole other
2-hour conversation right there.
Yeah, because that pertains to a lot of things.
because like you said, because it changed. Kids in baseball are throwing too much too early, specializing with pitches too much too early. You go into AAU basketball, kids are playing too many games and not practicing enough, so it just becomes like hero ball more than anything, and you're not developing your skill as much. There are good organizations out there that do practice and develop, but for the most part, it's a bunch of grown men or people that just want to let me put the best kids together, and I can say I want to. And it's even happening in football. It's a 7-on-7 culture. It's changed everything about football, because a lot of high school teams, you don't see your kids. You'll have kids missing practices for your football to go to 7-on-7, that playing with everybody else. And it's great. You get experience. I think everybody should play 7-on-7. Should be a part of it, because you learn and develop the game if you're with the right people. I know kids that were with 7-on-7 coaches that the coach is asking the 15-year-old kid, "Hey, what coverage was that?" Well, if you can't tell that, why are you coaching the kids? You know what I mean? There's too much of that. And that's one thing I think that we're going to start trying to do around here is we're going to do a coaches clinic this year for all our youth organization from the high school coaches perspective, and then we're going to do a little camp. I've done a lot of youth camps. I do them every year through former teammates of mine that made it to the NFL do camps, and there's a Sports International organization I work with that do camps. And I think education is key with any of this. Is you got to teach people so that they can give the youth the right message and learn the right things.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that one last thing, and then I swear we'll get off this. But the high school here did that for us. They would do like a 4-day like the high school coaches, the varsity coach. They would do meetings with us, and they would break us down into the groups, and we'd go run a practice with the coaches for the varsity team. And that was like the best experience. Like just at high school level, just seeing like how the practices have to run to be, again, a 5 or 5A, whatever, top of the highest populated in the state, blah, blah, blah. And we were ranked second in the state all year this year, ended up getting bounced out of playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But point being, like those coaches that are coaching at that level of high school, helping us to learn how to teach kids, and give them tools and stuff was fantastic. And those are great programs.
For sure.
Yeah, there's a big problem with pushing and specializing these kids at such a young age. You had that Friday Night Tykes show, and I just read an article that Mizell Miller kid doesn't even want to play football anymore, and he's just a freshman in high school, and he was the baddest man ever.
Happens all the time.
And unfortunately, those problems aren't going to go away because those programs make too much money. So it's just going to keep just endless fountain going.
It's an endless. Wherever the money is, you'll find everything anymore. That's just what breeds this world. It's like, because that's another discussion you can get into. Everybody can get into 17 games too much for the NFL. I would say yes, just physically. If you want to know why play is lacked so much, there's more games. You're playing more games, but you're also I don't want to say you're practicing less, but you practice differently now. I mean, that's another topic. Like, even though I'm I could say I'm bitter right now because of the way the merger happened. They left us out being the second best team in the league and everything, and we don't have a job in the league. That's one or the other, but there is a necessary evil for spring football. Now, again, money's what's going to tell whether this lasts or not in this new merger with the, being called the UFL now again. But they need it because a lot of times you would take a guy in the NFL late and say, oh, I'm going to draft and develop him. Especially linemen, you can't develop linemen anymore because the only way you develop a lineman is by physical reps and doing it. And you can create all the pretty drills and cool drills that you want, but until you're physically going live against another guy, you're not going to get better. And you don't practice live that much anymore. Once you get out of training camp, you'll never go live in the NFL. And there's most NFL teams don't ever tackle to the ground, even in camp, because by that point, you're expected to know how to do that. If you can't, you wouldn't be there. But the only way you get better at football is by playing football. And so I think that's why you get a lot of more injuries and that's also why if you look at the quality of play in September and October, or in September compared to what it is later in the year in the NFL, there's a very big correlation to that. Because especially now with only 3 preseason games, a lot of starters aren't playing a snap in the preseason. The first real snaps they get are on September 11th or 10th or whatever the season starts. So, I think that's the thing that is never going to change because it should never go back to the day where you're going live 3 days a week and whatever. You don't need to do that, but there needs to be a balance here at some point. But if they keep making the money they make, you're going to keep getting a lot of games. Yeah. So, which is fine by me.
Well, we've gone an hour and a half here, so I think that we should thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. I mean, you guys did an hour and like 15 at least on just the women's Royal Rumble, so
I'm glad somebody watched it.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it. That's a great story, and dude, yeah, coaching. Like I've been listening to you, and I'm like, I remember how excited I was to be like, oh my God, like I might become a high school coach, and then who knows what happens? Like, because once I get into coaching's going to be my life. And back in the day, one of the dreams when I was a kid that I had was not to play in the NHL because I was a hockey player up until I had my 3rd kid. And my wife said, you got to stop playing beer league hockey. But like, I didn't want to play in the NHL. I wanted to ref. And like when I was in high school, I knew the rule book by heart. Like I knew, like I read it so many times. And I was like, I'm going to be a ref. I want to be a ref. It's just one of those things that if you don't know how to get into reffing, like, and know how to create a path, like there's just no way to do it. And with coaching, it's actually kind of nice because with local sports for kids and everything else, in my area, when we started our local, town sports, like they need volunteers for coaches. Just get out there and coach. Get out there. Like, and the sad thing is I would put myself as like an alternate sometimes for like soccer or t-ball because I didn't really want to do it. But like they didn't have anybody because parents just they just not everybody has very few people have the time. We live in a very demanding society, But it's just like I encourage everyone to coach, whether you have kids or not, because if you love a sport, coaching is by far the best way to pass it on and to pass on a love for the sport, which is the most important thing. The money's always going to be there. If you don't love the sport and build it with a love of the game, like it's going to implode at some point. It won't always sit atop its throne talking about football specifically.
Totally with you. And it's, giving back is why I'm doing this. I mean, and it's also because, I've struggled a lot just with, I'd heard it all along. You hear about depression and mental health and everything until like January 15th of 2018 till we lost to the Jaguars, and I knew, my contract's going to be up. It's probably I'm going to be moving on more than likely, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then after the AAF stuff happened, there was that 2-year period, even though I was coaching high school, that if it wasn't for me coaching high school, I would have stayed in a really kind of dark place, because you don't, you hear a lot of players say this, but you become it. I am a coach. That's what I am. And if I can't coach, what am I doing? Or, why can't I do it? You kind of question, your self-worth, and was I not good enough, et cetera. So this has been a way that, I've gone beyond my wildest dreams of where I thought I would coach. So if I get a chance, and I'm still working to get that chance to get back into professional football in some capacity, if I don't ever get that again, God willing, I will. But if I don't, I at least can take solace in that, I'm giving back to the kids. I've achieved my dream already. Now I can help these kids achieve their dream. And then me, I'm still kind of living my dream through them now. I'm giving back. I help them take that next step. And that's what kind of keeps me going, and that where I'm not a completely miserable person or when my kids are around and everything, and my wife. But, well, wives, that's just, you can be miserable around them all the time anyways, but that just happens in marriage. That's what some coaches would always joke that, we have better marriages in season because you're not around as much. So you don't spend as much time together. So you don't get on each other's nerves as much. But
that's why I work nights and Julie works days.
There you go.
But if anybody watches this at all and sees the absolute passion that you have for coaching and the game of football, I don't see any doubt that you would not be hired somewhere, because it is through the roof with your passion.
That's all I could tell anybody is just, regardless of the money, screw the money. Find something in your life, especially kids, you can tell this, that are looking for their career. Find something that you want to do, because there's a lot of jobs, but you can be miserable and have a miserable life. Go find something that you're passionate about, that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, and you'll be good. You'll be happy with everything, and everything will kind of fall into place however God sees it.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing I'm going to be saying a lot on these shows. Very same message. I'm preaching the same truth right now. I have 4 kids of my own, and it's that's the same message. Exactly that right there. And it took me until 42 years old to, be honest about it. But we were raised in a different time and told different things. And
absolutely.
But same message, man. I'm right there with you.
And welcome back after our wonderful interview with Coach Steve Meyer. Thank you for your time, and my goodness, what content you gave us.
Thank you.
That was awesome video. We are going to come back with our predictions for the Super Bowl. So, Zach, what are you thinking, man?
I honestly, I don't. So here's the thing. I'm going to start here. I wanted Detroit to pull out the NFC Championship game. I'm going to say most people probably did in their hearts that aren't 49er fans. But I think with the way their defense looked in the first half, the way Bosa was overcommitting on the rushes, and I disagree with Coach. I'm taking the under on that half sack that I set for the over-under. I don't think they get to him. I think Patrick Mahomes lifts the fucking MVP trophy, basically being able to say he's the only quarterback to go through a postseason never being sacked. He's just too dominant right now. The style of ball that they're playing is too fucking good. And I honestly don't even know. I'm worried it's not going to be a game. I'm worried that, McCaffrey goes for less than 100 and they'd shut it down. And I got Kansas City putting up 30-ish and San Francisco down in the teens. That's where I am. That's where I am.
Okay. I really like the Chiefs. I don't think you can go past Mahomes at this stage. He's just too damn good. I think Pacheco has a big game. That dude is the hardest runner I've seen in the NFL in a long time. I think Travis Kelce probably gets a touchdown so they can show Taylor.
Hold on. I want to stop you there because I was looking at betting odds like props and shit, and there is actually a betting prop you can bet on whether or not Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift after the game.
What has the NFL come to? Or Vegas, for that matter. That could be a fixed bet. I think if they win, he does for some odd reason.
Yeah, I kind of
those two young lovebirds. Wouldn't that be me and Travis? We're going to Disneyland. Oh man,
I mean
that's booking Triple H.
It's clearly the most organically beautiful relationship ever found on this planet. I'm so happy for both of these multi-millionaires and borderline billionaires, I'm sure, in Taylor's instance. I hope it happens. I hope that Kansas City dominates the Super Bowl and he gets to propose on the stadium, on the podium and everything, and the whole world rejoices. I can't wait. I can't wait. It'll overtake John Cena proposing to Nikki Bella at WrestleMania as the greatest public proposal of all time.
I wonder if he says it's a love story, baby, just say yes, just like her song. I don't know why I know this, but I know it.
Oh, please. That's the problem, isn't it? We all know who Taylor Swift, it's impossible to not know her music. It's impossible. You can't be alive right now and not know her music. And that's okay.
She does have she's got some bangers though. I'll give her that.
Fuck, dude, Shake It Off. Are you kidding? You put Shake It Off right now on and I'm on this table fucking like dancing. All right.
I wish I knew how to do this a little bit more. I would do that. Stay tuned.
We don't have tips enabled yet. You got to get tips enabled
on our YouTube live video.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. I think it's going to be a close game just for ratings wise. I think money dictates that. Maybe like a 28-24 last drive with Kansas City scoring a touchdown late.
I'm gonna say, like, I thought that when I was thinking about this earlier in the shower, I was thinking the same thing. Like, and then when Coach fucking said it, for some reason, coming back here right now, I decided, look, the money it's going to come in on Kansas City because obviously I have a feeling everybody's going to be picking Kansas City day of. I can't see a lot of people outside of Northern California picking the 49ers. Kansas City dominated Baltimore, and Baltimore was the best team in football most of the year. And
except when they played the Steelers.
Well,
Steelers
okay.
beat them twice.
There you go. Fantastic. Yeah. Love it. Congratulations. Was Mitchell Trubisky playing quarterback on one of those games? No. I have a jersey over here for you if you ever want it. Anyway.
Check that out on Whatnot for these.
Hey, Sack Shop. Hey, but for real, like, I just decided that it makes more sense to me that Kansas City just puts their fucking foot on their throat and it turns into a bloodbath and the Chiefs can legitimately call themselves like a superior team, like I think it's going to be very I think it's going to be a stamp. Like, I really do. I think it's going to be the pinnacle of the Kansas City era is happening next Sunday.
Yeah, the dynasty. They can really stamp it.
And Pacheco, you're talking about Pacheco. I agree with you. I was not. Pacheco really wasn't on my radar early on in the year, and when he was on the injury list as questionable prior to the Baltimore game, and he comes out and the first couple plays his way, he's just destroying people. Like, he clearly came to play. And I was like, injured my ass. Like, he's fine, and he's going to crush them. And he did. And I think he's going to have a big game too. I'm with you on that. I think he's going to have a big game.
Yeah, I really like that dude, man.
He I've always been a fan of guys who catch the ball well out of the backfield, and he's one of those guys.
Yeah, just an absolute monster.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, me too. I want to give a shout out to the boys over at the Ain't No Seats podcast. Ryan, AB, B Turn, dropping this fire hoodie on me. If you like Kansas sports, check them out.
I'm gonna do one too. Can I do one too? And you're done.
Absolutely.
Finish up. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, dude, I haven't talked about my boy Fulio yet, but my tie-dyes, all my tie-dyes, I will always be wearing a tie-dye on these shows. It will always be done by my man Fulio. And tonight I wore a hat. I'm going to show it off here. This is my boy, and this is for my – hey, check us out on Whatnot. If you know the app, you know the app. If you don't, check it out, Whatnot. He's My Vintage Life 1904. Check him out. Tie-dye artist, also hats.
Whew, that was – Gesundheit, that was a mouthful right there.
Hey, I know how to do that shit.
Be sure to like, subscribe, comment on our YouTube. We're on Spotify. We maybe be ponying up some money for Apple. Put that Apple podcast all together. But YouTube, we're gonna actually go live next episode, I believe.
Yes.
So that's a goal of ours. And I only have one thing to say to you.
Oh God.
Texas forever, 6.
Texas forever.
We out.
Later, guys.